Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sunlight streaming through your window, and for a brief moment, everything feels normal. You go about your routine, brushing your teeth, making coffee, scrolling through your phone. But then, something shifts. A thought creeps in, unbidden, like a shadow you can't quite shake. What if everything you believe about yourself is a lie? What if the person you think you are, your ambitions, your values, your very identity, is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion? You dismiss it at first. Of course, you know yourself. You've spent years building this version of you, polishing it, defending it, presenting it to the world. But the thought lingers, gnawing at the edges of your mind. What if the stories you tell yourself about your successes, your failures, your relationships are just stories? What if the truths you hold so tightly are nothing more than comforting fictions? This is the paradox of self-deception. The closer you look, the more it slips through your fingers. You want to believe you're in control, that your mind is a fortress of rationality and self-awareness. But what if the opposite is true? What if your mind is not a fortress, but a labyrinth, filled with mirrors and trapdoors, designed to keep you from seeing what you're not ready to face? Consider this. Have you ever convinced yourself that a bad decision was actually the right one? Have you ever justified a failure by blaming someone else or rewritten a painful memory to make it easier to bear? These are not just quirks of human nature. They are the fingerprints of self-deception, the subtle ways your mind protects you from truths that might shatter your sense of self. But here's the unsettling question. If self-deception is so pervasive, how do you know when you're deceiving yourself? How do you distinguish between the truth and the lies you tell yourself to survive? And what happens when the lies become so ingrained that they feel like truth? The great thinkers of the past grappled with these questions. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, the dark mirror of our conscious identity. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of the dangers of living in a world of illusions, where we create gods and ideologies to shield ourselves from the void. Arthur Schopenhauer saw self-deception as the root of human suffering, a desperate attempt to escape the unbearable truth of existence. But why does this matter? Why should you care about the lies you tell yourself? Because self-deception is not just a psychological curiosity, it's a prison. It shapes your decisions, your relationships, your entire life. It keeps you trapped in cycles of failure and frustration, always wondering why you can't seem to break free. It blinds you to your own potential, your own power, your own truth. And yet there is a way out. The labyrinth is not endless. The mirrors can be shattered, the trapdoors unlocked. But to do that, you must first confront the great question. Who are you really? Not the version of yourself you present to the world, not the stories you tell yourself to feel safe, but the raw, unfiltered truth. This is not an easy journey. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. But the reward is nothing less than freedom, the freedom to live authentically, to make decisions from a place of clarity, to become the person you were meant to be. So, let's begin. Let's peel back the layers of illusion, one by one, and see what lies beneath. Let's explore the psychology of self-deception, not as an abstract concept, but as a force that shapes your life in ways you've never fully understood. Because the truth is waiting, and it's closer than you think. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of seeing your reflection, you see a stranger. This stranger looks like you, moves like you, even smiles like you, but something is off. Their eyes don't meet yours. Their gestures feel rehearsed, their expressions slightly too perfect. You reach out to touch the glass, but the stranger doesn't move. And then it hits you. This isn't a mirror, it's a mask. This is the essence of self-deception. It's not just lying to yourself, it's creating an entire persona, a version of reality that feels safer, more manageable than the truth. But why? Why would your mind, the very tool you rely on to navigate the world, conspire against you? The answer lies in the uncomfortable intersection of psychology and philosophy. At its core, self-deception is a survival mechanism. It's your mind's way of protecting you from truths that feel too painful, too threatening to confront. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the part of your psyche that houses everything you've repressed, denied, or disowned. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply the parts of yourself you're not ready to face. And yet it wields immense power over your life. Consider this. Have you ever felt a surge of anger or jealousy that seemed to come out of nowhere? Have you ever caught yourself sabotaging your own success or clinging to a relationship that was clearly toxic? These are not random acts of self-destruction. They are the shadow's way of asserting itself, of forcing you to confront what you've been avoiding. But self-deception goes deeper than individual psychology. It's woven into the fabric of society itself. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly. He argued that modern society is built on a foundation of lies. Lies about morality, about purpose, about the nature of reality. We create gods, ideologies, and institutions to give ourselves a sense of meaning. But these are ultimately illusions, designed to shield us from the terrifying freedom of existence. Arthur Schopenhauer took this idea even further. He believed that self-deception is the root of all human suffering. We chase after wealth, status, and pleasure, believing these things will bring us happiness, but they never do. Instead, we find ourselves trapped in an endless cycle of desire and disappointment, always wanting more, never feeling satisfied. Why? Because we're chasing illusions, not truths. And then there's Jean-Paul Sartre, who famously declared, "Man is condemned to be free." This freedom is not a gift, it's a burden. It forces us to confront the fact that we are responsible for our own lives, our own choices, our own meaning. But this responsibility is so overwhelming that most of us flee from it. We hide behind roles, routines, and relationships, convincing ourselves that we have no other choice. But here's the twist. Self-deception doesn't just protect us from pain, it also robs us of power. By refusing to face the truth, we give up control over our lives. We become passive observers, reacting to circumstances rather than shaping them. We blame others for our problems, cling to outdated beliefs, and repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And yet, there is a way out. The first step is to recognize the problem, to see the mask for what it is, and to understand why you've been wearing it. This is not easy. It requires a willingness to question everything you think you know about yourself, to confront the parts of your psyche you've spent a lifetime avoiding. But the rewards are immense. By facing the truth, you reclaim your power. You break free from the cycles of self-sabotage and stagnation. You begin to live authentically, to make decisions from a place of clarity and purpose. So let's go deeper. Let's explore the hidden forces that shape your behavior, your emotions, your very identity. Let's uncover the roots of self-deception, not as an abstract concept, but as a force that shapes your life in ways you've never fully understood, because the truth is waiting, and it's closer than you think. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your entire life has been built on a foundation of sand. The career you've pursued, the relationships you've nurtured, the beliefs you've held sacred, all of it feels suddenly fragile, as if a single gust of wind could blow it all away. This is the moment when the consequences of self-deception come crashing down. Self-deception doesn't just distort your perception of reality, it shapes your reality. It's like wearing glasses with the wrong prescription. At first, the world seems a little blurry, but you adjust. Over time, you forget that the blur exists. You start to believe that this distorted view is how things really are. And then, one day, you stumble, you fall, and you realize too late that you've been walking on the edge of a cliff, The consequences of self-deception are everywhere, but they're often invisible. They manifest in the choices you make, the relationships you struggle with, the dreams you abandon. They're the reason you stay in a job that drains your soul or cling to a relationship that makes you miserable. They're the reason you feel stuck, even when everything in your life seems fine on the surface. Consider cognitive biases, the mental shortcuts your brain takes to make sense of the world. Confirmation bias, for example, is the tendency to seek out information that confirms what you already believe, while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. This isn't just a quirk of human nature, it's a form of self-deception. It's your mind's way of protecting you from the discomfort of being wrong, but the cost is high. It keeps you trapped in a bubble of your own making, cut off from new ideas, new perspectives, new possibilities. Then there's the neurological aspect. Your brain is wired to prioritize comfort over truth. When faced with a choice between a painful truth and a comforting lie, your brain will almost always choose the lie. This is why addiction is so hard to break. It's not just a physical dependency, it's a psychological one. The addict convinces themselves that they're in control, that they can stop any time they want. But deep down, they know the truth. And that truth is too painful to face. Cultural conditioning plays a role too. From the moment you're born, you're bombarded with messages about who you should be, what you should want, how you should live. These messages are so pervasive that they become invisible. You internalize them without even realizing it. And then one day, you wake up and realize that you've been living someone else's life. The consequences of self-deception are not just personal, they're societal. Look at the world around you. The political polarization, the environmental crisis, the mental health epidemic, all of these are rooted in collective self-deception. We tell ourselves that everything is fine, that someone else will fix it, that we're not part of the problem. But the truth is, we are. And until we face that truth, nothing will change. But here's the most insidious part. Self-deception is self-reinforcing. The more you deceive yourself, the harder it becomes to see the truth. You build walls around your mind, walls so thick that even the brightest light can't penetrate them. And then, one day, you realize that you've become a prisoner in your own mind. This is the urgency of the moment. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to break free. The walls grow thicker, the lies more convincing, the consequences more severe. But there is a way out. It starts with a single terrifying step, a willingness to see the truth. So let's go deeper. Let's explore the unseen consequences of self-deception, not as abstract concepts, but as forces that shape your life in ways you've never fully understood, because the truth is waiting, and it's closer than you think. Imagine standing at the edge of a dense forest. The trees are tall, their branches intertwined so tightly that no light penetrates the canopy. You've been told this forest is impenetrable, that no one who enters ever comes out. But something inside you stirs, a quiet, insistent voice that says, "Go, there's something on the other side." This is the moment of rebellion. This is the moment you decide to break free. Breaking free from self-deception is not a gentle process. It's not about tweaking a habit or adopting a new mindset. It's a radical act of defiance against the lies you've been told, the roles you've been assigned, and the illusions you've created to protect yourself. It's about tearing down the walls of your mind, brick by brick, until you can see the world and yourself clearly for the first time. The first step is to confront the lies. This is harder than it sounds. Self-deception is so deeply ingrained that it feels like truth. To challenge it, you must become a detective of your own mind. Start by questioning your assumptions. Why do you believe what you believe? Where did those beliefs come from? Are they based on evidence, or are they just stories you've been telling yourself? Carl Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. It's about bringing the shadow into the light, not to destroy it, but to understand it. This requires brutal honesty. You must be willing to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the fears, the insecurities, the desires you've buried. It's uncomfortable, even painful, but it's necessary. Next, you must challenge the narratives that shape your life. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that most of us live according to inherited values, values we've never questioned, never examined. To break free, you must create your own values. This doesn't mean rejecting everything you've been taught. It means deciding for yourself what is true, what is meaningful, what is worth pursuing. One powerful tool for this is cognitive dissonance. This is the mental discomfort you feel when you hold two conflicting beliefs at the same time. Most people resolve this discomfort by rejecting the new information and clinging to their existing beliefs. But you can use it as a catalyst for change. When you feel that discomfort, lean into it. Ask yourself, why does this feel wrong? What am I afraid of losing? Another tool is mindfulness. This is not just about meditation or breathing exercises. It's about cultivating a state of awareness in every moment. Pay attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. Notice when you're justifying, rationalizing, or avoiding. These are the moments when self-deception is most active. By bringing awareness to them, you can begin to dismantle them. But breaking free is not just an individual act, it's a collective one. Society thrives on self-deception. It rewards conformity, punishes dissent, and perpetuates illusions. To truly break free, you must also challenge the systems and structures that reinforce those illusions. This doesn't mean you have to become an activist or a revolutionary. It simply means living authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. History is full of examples of those who broke free. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This is the essence of rebellion, the refusal to let external forces dictate your internal reality. Breaking free is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong process. There will be moments of doubt, moments when the old lies feel more comforting than the new truths. But each time you choose truth over illusion, you become stronger. You reclaim a little more of yourself. So, let's go deeper. Let's explore how to break free from self-deception, not as an abstract concept, but as a radical act of self-liberation, because the truth is waiting, and it's closer than you think. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast, endless ocean. The waves crash against the rocks, their rhythm ancient and unchanging. You've spent your entire life building sandcastles on this shore, each one more elaborate than the last. You've poured your energy, your dreams, your identity into these fragile structures. But now, as you stand here, you realize something. The tide is rising. No matter how beautiful your sandcastles are, they will be swept away. This is the ultimate truth. Everything you've built, your identity, your beliefs, your sense of self, is temporary. It's not real in the way you think it is. It's a construct, a story, a mask. And yet, this realization is not a cause for despair, it's a cause for liberation. The final, most powerful realization is this: you are not your thoughts, your beliefs, or your identity. You are the awareness behind them. This is the insight that philosophers and mystics have pointed to for centuries. Jean-Paul Sartre called it being for itself. The capacity to transcend your circumstances and define yourself anew. Carl Jung saw it as the integration of the self, the moment when the ego surrenders to the greater whole. In Eastern traditions, it's often described as awakening, the realization that the self is an illusion, a fleeting pattern in the vast ocean of existence. But what does this mean in practical terms? It means that you are not trapped by your past, your habits, or your conditioning. You are not defined by your successes or failures, your roles or relationships. You are not even defined by your thoughts. You are the space in which those thoughts arise. You are the awareness that observes them. This realization is both terrifying and exhilarating. It's terrifying because it strips away everything you thought you knew about yourself. It forces you to confront the void, the abyss, the unknown. But it's exhilarating because it gives you ultimate freedom. If you are not your thoughts, then you are free to change them. If you are not your identity, then you are free to redefine it. If you are not your past, then you are free to create a new future. This is the paradox at the heart of self-deception. The more you cling to your identity, the more trapped you become. But the moment you let go, the moment you realize that you are not the mask, but the one wearing it, you become free. So how do you live from this realization? How do you navigate a world that still clings to illusions while holding this ultimate truth in your heart? The answer is simple, but not easy. Live authentically. Living authentically means aligning your actions with your deepest truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It means letting go of the need for approval, the fear of rejection, the desire for control. It means embracing uncertainty, embracing the unknown, embracing the void. It also means embracing paradox. You are both everything and nothing. You are a unique individual with your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And yet, you are also part of something greater, something infinite, something eternal. You are a wave on the ocean, distinct, yet inseparable from the whole. This is the ultimate truth. You are not who you think you are. You are more. You are the awareness behind the mask, the stillness beneath the chaos, the light within the shadow. And so as you stand on the shore, watching the tide rise, you realize something else. The ocean is not your enemy. It's not here to destroy your sandcastles. It's here to remind you of what's real. The sandcastles will be swept away, but you, the awareness, the presence, the essence, will remain. This is the final, most powerful realization. This is the truth that sets you free.